The project is called Torah Tropical, and it's a feature film documentary. It'll be about 90 minutes when we're finished. We are currently in the editing stage. We have 120 hours of footage that we have filmed over the past year. This project started in about 2014 when I stumbled upon a mass conversion. When I started documenting the Jews of Cali, I discovered there was a group of evangelical Christians that were converting to Judaism. And I was trying to get the ins and trying to figure out how I could start photographing them. And one day I opened the newspaper and I saw an ad, or not an ad, an announcement that said, Comunidad Megan David, no, excuse me, Comunidad Megan Abraham is going to receive their first Torah. And I thought to myself, wait a second, what is going on here? Because Megan Abraham is not one of the traditional Jewish communities. We have the Sociedad Hebrea and we have the Centro Israelita. Which one is this? So I made a few phone calls, and the Jewish community of Cali, the traditional Jewish community, knew of them. And they said, oh yeah, those are the evangelical Christians that have converted to Judaism. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. You guys knew about this? And I've been asking all these questions and nobody has said anything to me. So I took it upon myself and I showed up that evening to hopefully document the arrival of their first Torah. And to my surprise and astonishment, it was a mass conversion. They had a bunch of people had gathered from all over Colombia, and a group called Chevy Israel had arrived, and they have headquarters in Bogota, and they had converted about, I want to say, 40 families that day. Give or take, and there was a big celebration, and I thought, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So I took I asked some questions first. They were very skeptical of me. Who am I? What am I doing here? Why do I want to take their photos? And I told them that I was documenting the Jewish communities of Cali, which was the truth. And they said, oh, okay. So they welcomed me. And one particular family I became very friendly with throughout the time. I met them that evening, and I started documenting them on a regular basis. And then I pitched this, and it got published into the Washington Post, the Washington Post magazine, and became very popular, which I believe I'd mentioned earlier. And at that point, Ezra said, Heidi, I think we should take this farther and really tell this story. This is just magnificent. And I said, sure, let's go meet Iska and Menachem and let's go talk to them. And we did. And immediately Ezra also fell in love with them. And we sat down with David, Ezra's husband, and we started discussing how we're going to bring this project to the next level.
Right.
Ezra, take it away.
At that point, so I knew Heidi socially, and I wasn't familiar. I didn't know Heidi was a photographer. And then one time she invited David and myself to lunch at her house and shared the documentary project, with her photos of the converts in Cali and around Colombia. And at that time, David and I had been working on launching our production company, which is called Dystopia, in which our plan was to develop world-class stories that are based here in Cali, because over the previous 5 years, we had come into contact with such strange things to recount, and the kind of Gabriel Garcia Marquez like environment where there are always these personalities and these situations that you're learning about, and you think, wow, every day here is like a movie, and we need to tell the world these stories. Cali traditionally was the film industry hub of Colombia. This is where modern cinema was born in Colombia, the modern film industry. And the drug war, because the most recent iteration was centered here in Cali during the 90s and early 2000s, so much capital left the city, so many companies left the city, so much talent left, that industry imploded. And what is left is a group of very talented people working extremely hard to resuscitate that industry, and it seemed like an exciting moment for people with my and David's profile to be here and nurturing, developing those stories and using our contacts internationally to breathe some new life into the local film industry. And we had mapped out a plan of projects where we would be documenting different social movements that would happen, that are happening, laddering up to a project called the Coca Codex, which is about the multi-millennial tradition of coca use in this area and the Andes and the current legalization movement around coca. So I had also been working in post-production in film in Colombia, so had developed a nice network of contacts here in the country, and felt like it was really prime conditions to take on a film project, because we would have access, David and I would have access to capital to make the movies, to make the projects, which is always the biggest hurdle for making projects in Colombia, is accessing financing. And we had production contacts both in Colombia and abroad. And so when we had that lunch with Heidi and saw how mesmerizing the photos were and how eccentric the characters were, how the whole premise of evangelical Christians converting to Orthodox Judaism in Latin America with a dream of making Aliyah was an immediate attention grabber. And layered on top of that, this set, which is Cali, which is this drug war, battlefield, really. I mean, let's be honest, it's a really chaotic setting, human setting. It seemed like a really winning formula for a movie premise. And we got to work. That was in actually April 2021. And that kickoff of that work coincided with the national strike, which was a historic uprising across Colombian society against the government that brought about unprecedented political change in the country. It's very controversial. It led to the election of Gustavo Petro, who is a former urban guerrilla. Things have really, really changed in Colombia, and that was happening over the year that we were filming Tora Tropical.